Thank you all. Thank you parents, teachers, loved ones, and especially thank you boys for having me here today. Today I want to focus on 3 words. Connection, kindness, and contribution. The last time I stood here on this stage 27 years ago at my own speech day, little did I realise just how much these 3 words would come to mean to me. With each of these 3 words come 3 questions. How can you make a human connection in this world that is crying out for it? How can you make a human connection with the people that have come before you, the people around you, the people who will come after you? How can you find, when you see someone struggling, how can you find a tiny act of kindness? And in that moment, how can you make a contribution that might just change a life? Because I know that when we do build human connection, when we find the tiny act of kindness, that we can make a contribution that can change a life. I know because it happened to me. Today, I wanted us to build human connection in a very short activity. Headmaster, trustees, parents, teachers, loved ones, boys, we are all going to do this together. If you were here or at the Year 9 Blazers ceremony last year, you'll be a little bit familiar with this activity. It's very short. What we are going to do is we are going to breathe together. Not a big deal, just breathe together. So we're going to breathe in for 4. We're going to hold that breath for 7. We're going to breathe out for 8. We're going to do this 3 times. It's okay, I'll count you through it. And then I want you to follow my prompts, because this is how we can build a human connection. And not just intellectually understand this, but to know it, to feel it, to experience it. That is what we need in today's world. So, please, have a little wiggle. Sit comfortably. Get comfortable, sit up nice and tall, and I want you to bring your attention to your breath. Notice it. Going in your nose and out of your nose. What can you notice there, boys? And now I want you to close your eyes for me. Everyone, close your eyes. And keeping your attention on your breath now. We are all going to breathe in together, 2, 3, 4, and hold that breath, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4, and hold that breath, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Breathing out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Last one, breathing in, 2, 3, 4. Hold that breath, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And now, keeping your eyes closed, I want you to bring your attention to the soles of your feet. What can you notice there? It might be the texture of your sock, the pressure of your foot against the floor. And just recognize for a moment that we are all doing this together. Because now I want you to extend that awareness down into the floor. Let it run along the floor and down the sides of this building and onto the land on which we gather here today. And I want you to imagine the tens of thousands of years, the many thousands upon thousands of people that have walked this land before us, and recognize from the Yagara and Turrbal people all the way through to Brisbane grammar boys in blazers just like yours, and recognize that we stand here today on the actions they took, the decisions they made, the contributions that they made, here in the present. Now I want you to project, keeping your eyes closed, project into the future. And imagine the many, many thousands more people that will walk this land after us for many, many more years to come. And recognize that they will stand on the actions that we take, the decisions that we make here in the present. to bring forward the richness of the contributions of the past into the present and into the legacy that we are leaving every single day. Now, let that attention come back up off the land. Let it come up the sides of the building, run along the floor, and come to rest again on the soles of your feet. What can you notice there this time? Is there any difference? Now, I want you all to open your eyes, please, and come back to the room. Everyone, open your eyes, come back to the room. This is how we can build, just by breathing together, a human connection in this world that so desperately needs it. We need to be able to connect. I did consider maybe throwing in a Wong Wong Tariyar, but I didn't think that was quite appropriate for today. So, because when we can build this human connection, we can then find the tiny act of kindness that just might turn into a contribution that could change a life. The last time I stood here on this stage 27 years ago, I didn't realise I was 6 weeks away from a golden opportunity and 10 months away from an act of kindness that would change my life. 6 weeks after being here, standing here, I received a letter from the Australian Institute of Sport inviting me to come down to Canberra to play and train in the sport of water polo, this game that I'd fallen in love with here at Grammar from year 8 onwards. To come and play and train with some of the best players in the country. These guys were my heroes. They were the people I'd watched on videos. They were the ones I'd heard about but not yet met. Here was a golden opportunity because 3 years away, Sydney Olympics had been announced. I had a chance now to crack into the Australian team, to be a part of the squad and maybe, just maybe, make it into this Olympics. The year didn't really turn out as I had planned. I was away for the very first time, away from home, away from friends, family, support networks, fresh out of school, just like some of you guys will be next year. I was stepping into university for the very first time, whole new environment, and frankly, I was training the hardest I had ever trained in my life. And the results were a little bit disappointing, or quite disappointing. On the one hand, I'd made the Australian under-20 team, but on the other, I'd missed out on not one, but 2 opportunities to tour with the Open men's team. And that was the team that I wanted to be a part of. 1 trip to the US, 1 trip to Europe. I'm sure many of you have been in that seat where you miss out on selection for a team that you desperately want to be a part of. On both of those occasions, I was the only player left behind in Canberra. No doubt you already know how I felt. I was gutted. But there was nothing I could do. This time I want you to come with me. We are 9 months later, so we're in September this same year. And the Serbian national team have flown out to play a week of training camp and a week of official matches up in Sydney. We've got 30 of Australia's best players have also flown into Canberra to be a part of this. And some of you may know the Australian Institute of Sport. There's an indoor 50-metre pool there. And these 30 guys, the Aussie guys, we're all sitting up in this meeting room above that pool, overlooking the pool. Some of these guys are my great mates from the under-20 team. Others are my heroes. I'm finally in the room that I have so desperately wanted to be a part of. The coach is out the front. He runs through all the plans for the training, for the games, and he says, "Okay, guys, stick up your hand, please. Who here does not yet have your uniform for the camp?" I stick up my hand. And as I look around, I realise I'm the only one. The coach says, "Toby, you haven't been selected for this camp. You are here as a part of the residential program. You are here to watch, learn, listen. You won't be playing in the games. you won't be getting a uniform. This all in front of this group of 30 guys. I am mortified. I'm ashamed. I'm embarrassed. I want to run and hide. But there's nothing I can do. Fast forward a week, I've watched, I've listened, I've sat on the side watching these games and the training sessions, desperately wishing I could be a part of it. And the same group of guys, we're all back up in the same meeting room, overlooking that pool again. Coach is out the front again, this time going through the plans for Sydney, for official match 1, 2 and 3. And he says, okay, fellas, who here doesn't have your travel and accommodation arrangements for Sydney? Sucker for punishment. I stick up my hand. And as I look around, it's exactly the same situation. Coach says, Toby, if you're going to come to Sydney, you'll have to make your own arrangements. Another stinger in front of this group, and I can barely believe that I have just stuck up my hand a second time. How foolish can you be? But there's nothing I can do. I turned to my teammate, Tom, who is a great mate of mine. He's been in the national under-20 team with me, but he was selected for this camp. I said, mate, would it be okay for me to come up to Sydney with you to crash with your folks and come along and watch? He said, of course, Toby, come on. So I do. Then finally, we've got to night 1 of the first official match. We're up in Sydney. This time, Homebush Aquatic Centre. We're in another meeting room. There's a bit of a theme to this story. Underneath, this meeting room is underneath the stadium seating inside Homebush Aquatic Centre, just next to the 50-metre pool. In this same meeting room, the coach is out the front. He's been through the game plan, the strategy, the tactics. The guys are in front of me. They're doing their warm-up, exercises, stretches. I'm standing up the back of the room, watching, listening, desperately wishing I could be a part of it. The coach finally says, okay, everyone, let's go out to the pool deck. I step out of the room and into the hallway, start walking out towards the pool, when all of a sudden, I feel this hand grab my arm. I turn around, and there is Nathan Thomas. Now, you need to know something about Nathan. He is the Australian vice-captain. Earlier that year, he'd been voted one of the top 5 most dangerous players in the whole world. He's recently flown back from Barcelona, where his club team made the Champions League finals. And he has his hand on my arm. As he lets go of my arm, he turns to me and he says, and he starts to open his bag. He reaches into his bag and he pulls out a t-shirt. This t-shirt looks a lot like the one that the guys have on. Same white, same logo on the chest. And he says, Tobes, I have been watching. I have seen the effort that you are putting in. I want you to have this old shirt of mine. Because one day, I think you will earn your own. Nath hands me this shirt, walks down the hall, and changes my life. There are 3 lessons here. The first, I'm incredibly proud of my 18-year-old self. At a time when the doubts were overwhelming, at a time when I never thought I was ever going to be good enough, at a time when there was no self-belief left. It was gone. I kept showing up. The second lesson in my mind is that none of us do this alone. No one. This myth of the self-made man, the self-made woman is exactly that. It is a myth and a dangerous one. We all stand on the contributions of the people who have come before us. We all find ourselves in moments where the doubts are overwhelming, where there is no self-belief. And in these moments, we all rely on the tiny acts of kindness of the people around us. Which brings me to the third lesson, and contribution. Because clearly Nathan Thomas, in his position as the vice captain of the Australian team, he didn't have to pay attention to me. This fresh out of high school, least experienced, least accomplished kid, he didn't have to pay attention to me. And yet he did. And he built a human connection. And when he did, he found a tiny act of kindness and made a contribution in that moment that changed my life. With 30 seconds of his time and an old t-shirt, Nathan inspired me right the way through missing out again in Sydney. All the way through to finally becoming an Olympian in Athens, this dream that I had held. And frankly, for the rest of my life. Now, Nathan and I, as you might imagine, we are great mates. He and I have spoken about this t-shirt many, many, many times. The only conclusion that I can draw is that this is a debt that can never be repaid. It can only be paid forward. And so, boys, the very fact that you and I have both worn this grammar blazer, that we have worn this grammar blazer, put us in amongst some of the most privileged people in the world. And with privilege comes responsibility. A responsibility to take everything you are, everything that this blazer represents, and make a contribution. Pay that forward. It is the only answer. And please don't wait for some mythical time when, you have more power, more money, more resources, more time. The time to act is now. Which is why today I want to leave you with a challenge. How can you build a human connection? How can you find, in a moment when someone is struggling, a tiny act of kindness? And then in that moment, how can you make a contribution that just might change a life? Because I know that when you do, you can change a life. Connection, kindness, and contribution. Thank you. Okay.